Welcome to the next clip in this course on Capture One, and in this video we will be talking about the Layers tool. So the layer and mask system in the Layers tool in Capture One works in a very similar way to the adjustment layers in Photoshop. So if you are familiar with the adjustment layers and working with masks and layers in general in Photoshop, you will get used to the Layers tool in Capture One in no time. In Capture One, you can perform localized adjustments with layers of exposure, luminosity, and colors. The Layers tool is available in multiple tool tabs such as color, exposure, you can see the Layers tool here, and you can find the Layers tool as well in the Details tab. And this can be quite confusing if you are not used to the Capture One yet. So to clarify, no matter how many layer tool tabs you will have in your tool spanner, this will always be the very same tool, just multiplied for easier access from different tabs. So if you, for example, add here a new layer and call it, let's just leave it layer 1, so you can jump to the exposure tab and you can see that the tool here was updated and the layer 1 is visible here. So the same happened in the detail tab. So let's get back to our color tab and let's get rid of this layer. And remember that you can always fully customize Capture One workspace to fit your needs. So let's get back to our Layers tool and let's focus on the very tool. So to add a new layer, you could already see I've done this super quick. So to do this, you need to use this plus icon and you have a choice here. You can add either new empty layer, new filled layer, or you can add one of these two special layers, clone and heal layer. These two special layers can be used to remove some distracting elements in the image, and I have covered this functionality in a separate video in this course. So let's get back to the two first types of layers, so we can add empty layer or filled layer. So just to illustrate the difference, let's select the first one, new empty layer, and if you would just click the plus without choosing anything, you will create by default empty layer. So let's just get rid of the second layer. To do this, I'm hitting the minus icon, and let's take a look at the empty layer that we have created here with the first option, new empty layer. So to have a preview of a mask, because empty layer means that we have no mask in this layer, and no matter what adjustment we will apply, it won't be visible on the very layer. So let's actually add some adjustment. On this layer, I'm going to change the white balance. I'm going to move it all the way to the left to cool the image, but you can see that nothing happened, nothing is visible. And if I would like to take a preview of a mask, all I need to do is to just hit M on my keyboard, so nothing is happening. It means that I have no mask applied to the layer. The masks will be covered in detail in a separate video in this course, but just to illustrate you that layers work in a very strong connection with masks. If you have empty layer, which means that if you have no mask applied on your layer, it means that no adjustment will be visible. So let's just quickly add a mask to the layer. Let's maybe add a gradient mask. So I'm going to select the icon from here, and with the Shift key, I'm going to apply gradient like that. So since I have clicked M, so I have the preview mask visible. The red overlay is the mask that is visible in my image. If I hit M again, the red overlay is gone, but I can see that the mask is visible in my image. So now if I switch off the layer, the adjustment is not visible anymore, and the same would happen if the layer was empty, if I had no mask on the layer. If I switch it on again, I have my mask in form of the red gradient visible applied, and this applies my adjustment in a partial way to the image. I'm not going to be talking too much about masks in this video, however, I think it's really worth mentioning here in this video about layers. So we have few more options here when it comes to displaying the applied adjustment with this very layer, and the adjustment is limited by the mask. So let's have again the preview of the mask. So we can right click on the layer, and here we have some more options when it comes to the mask. So if we hit clear mask, the red overlay will disappear and the adjustment is not available anymore. The mask is empty, the mask is gone. We can right click again and hit fill mask, so that way the mask reappeared again and now it's covering the whole image, so the adjustment is visible over the whole image. So I have already shown you how you can create a new layer, either empty layer or filled layer. I have shown you how to delete the layer with the minus icon. You can as well rename the layer if you want to. So we can double click on the layer and we can rename it simply by typing on the keyboard. So let's rename it to WB for white balance correction. So this is changing the white balance in my image. The intensity, the strength of the applied adjustment in the very layer can be controlled with the opacity slider that is visible here. So now the adjustment is applied at 100%. If I start moving the slider towards the left, you can see that the blue tone that was introduced into my image by changing the white balance is vanishing. So this is the opacity of the layer at 0 and this is the opacity of the layer at 100. So you can take control of the intensity of the adjustment applied with the opacity slider. A very powerful feature in Capture One when it comes to layers is reusing layer adjustments. So if we take a look at all the adjustments that I have applied on layers to this image, we can change the visibility of the tool. We can select medium size because I have a few more layers here that were hidden. So let's maybe get rid of the top adjustment. I'm going to use the minus icon. So first I have selected the layer. The layer is highlighted in orange and I can now get rid of the layer by hitting the minus icon. I have applied a few more adjustments, so I have corrected luminosity levels with the curve tool. I have created a warm color grading which was applied on this layer. I have created two more color grading versions, and here by selecting two of them I'm combining two different color gradings. I'm mixing the different settings for color balance tool that were applied separately to these layers. So when I was editing this image, I have added few adjustments on separate layers. And now once this is done, I can copy and reapply these adjustments. I can reuse them to another image. So let's select another image. So now if we select the other image, we can see that there are already some adjustments applied as well. Let's get back to the first image because I want to copy all these adjustments that are visible here to the second image. This is very important. The source image should be selected, and this will be indicated by this white border around the selected image. It is visible both here in the viewer and in the browser. So I have selected this image and I want to copy all these adjustments into the second image. So all I need to do is to just move over to the Layers tool and click on this little arrow here, the second icon. Once I have done this, I have the pop-up window visible, and here I have listed all the adjustments that were visible here for my image, and I can either select all of them or I can remove those that I don't want to reapply to the second image. So maybe I will get rid of the curve adjustments because I have already played around with luminosity levels and I want to copy these color gradings. And in fact, this one, the color grading Sun 1 and the second is the same color grading, so I can remove this one as well. So I will copy these two adjustments, these two layers from my selected image to the second image that is visible in the viewer. To do this, let's simply hit apply. You can immediately see that these adjustments were applied to the second image. The color has changed. If we now select the second image, we can see that two new layers were added on top of the existing stack of layers. So I have added this color grading and this one. So that's how the image looked like before adding the new layers that were copied from the other image that was set as a source image. And just to point out to those of you who are familiar with the previous version of Capture One, you might be surprised because in Capture One 20, these two new layers were added on top of the stack. In the previous version of Capture One, the old layers, all of them would get removed. You would have only these two layers, so the layers stack would be exactly the same as in the very first image. I think this is quite a nice improvement, and now you can create more combinations because you have choice. You can keep the old layers, or if you want, you can remove them. You can maybe first disable the visibility of them, and if you don't like them, you can get rid of them. So this gives you just more choice and more flexibility when editing your photos. When you are using this very powerful tool, the layers, be aware though that not all tools are available as layers. Not all tools can be used on a layer in a form of local adjustment. For example, one of those tools that are not working with layers is the black and white tool. So for example, if I would create a new filled layer and if I would like to apply on this layer black and white, I have switched it on, but this is not working on this layer. This was applied to the background layer. If I now get back to this layer and if I remove it, you will see that the black and white adjustment is still visible in the image. So that simply illustrates that it was not applied to the additional layer that I have added on top of the stack. This adjustment will be always applied to the base layer, to the background layer. There are a few more tools in Capture One that don't work with layers. Okay, so in this clip you have learned about layers. You know how to create a new layer, how to apply localized adjustments on layers. You have learned as well how to copy set of layers, set of adjustments from one image to another.